I figured out how to capture every phone booking, even when the business is closed, understaffed, or too busy to answer. And the crazy part, this is already being used in restaurants today, and it works just as well for any business that relies on phone calls. So I'll show you exactly how I built an AI agent that can book these calls by first checking for available tables for their group size, offering alternative times if fully booked, and then making the booking whilst updating the system automatically. And later in this video, I'll show you how restaurants have already solved one of the biggest hurdles with AI, hallucinations. Or in plain English, AI just making stuff up that you don't want it to. Once you see how this is handled, you'll realize it isn't theory, it's already working in the real world. So I've set up some dummy data here using Google Sheets just to give you an idea of what information might be available that we can extract from a CRM. So for this demo, I've just set it up so that we've got two separate tables, whether that's a table of 4 or a table of 2, as there may be availability for tables of 2, but then if you're booking for 3 people, that's obviously not going to be able to fit in. So I'll give you an example of that in our demo. So if we phone up the agent just now.
Hi, thanks for calling Fork and Pixel. Are you looking to make a reservation with us today?
Hi, yeah, I just want to book in for myself and my wife and our kid, just 6 p.m. today. Is that possible?
Let me just check for you. Unfortunately, we don't have availability at 6 p.m., but we do have openings at 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. Would either of those times work for you?
Oh, yes. I think 7 p.m. would be great, please.
Perfect. Can I have your name for the reservation, please?
Yes, Harry.
Thank you, Harry. Do you have any allergies or dietary conditions I should note for your reservation?
Oh, my wife's got a peanut allergy.
Got it. I'll note that your wife has a peanut allergy. Is this reservation for a special occasion, like a birthday or anniversary?
Yeah, it's actually our anniversary.
Happy anniversary, Harry. Just to confirm, we have your reservation for 3 people at 7 p.m. today, with a note for your wife's peanut allergy, and that it's for your anniversary. Is everything correct?
Yeah, that sounds good.
I'll just book that in for you. You're all set. Your reservation is confirmed for 3 people at 7 p.m. today. Thank you for choosing Fork and Pixel, and happy anniversary. Do you have all the information you need?
Yes, that's everything, thanks.
You're very welcome. Enjoy your evening and have a wonderful anniversary celebration. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Excellent. So we can now see here, it's updated the number of tables booked from 8 to 9. And then if we look into our bookings, we can see here now it's got all information about the booking date, the time, my name. It's even extracted my phone number, the party size, and it's taken notes that I've got a peanut allergy and that it's going to be an anniversary. Great, I think that's working pretty well. If you like the sound of this, there are a few things you're going to need to know to get this to work. Firstly, I'll go over the basics of the difference between ChatGPT and an AI agent, and then I'll break down the process of how it works before finally going into more depth if you want to build this for yourself. If you're new to the channel and don't know who I am, my name is Harry Moore. I spent the last 3 years developing software solutions for some of the world's most recognizable brands, and early this year, I moved my focus entirely to helping businesses integrate voice AI-driven solutions. If you're interested in hearing more how we can help your business, the first 5 people who book a call with me using the link below will receive a bonus gift for free, whether you decide to work with us or not. All I can tell you, it's personalized to your business and worth over $500. So to have a better understanding of what's actually going on, I've created a nice simple diagram here that gives you a better sense of the workflow that these agents are running. There's 2 main pieces of software, and these are VAPI and N8N. Now these are both enterprise grade businesses. They're dealing with many companies up to Fortune 500 as well. So we know these are going to be very secure, reliable, and not going to be leaking any sensitive information about our businesses. So when the user initiates the call, we can also have the agent answer any questions they like about the business that you provided it, such as what's on the menu. And then when they're ready, we can get them to go and book a reservation, which will make sure the agent, this is VAPI in blue, will have to go and make sure it gathers the date, time, and number of guests before it moves on. When it's ready, what it will do is trigger an automation. Now this is going to be running on N8N. This automation triggered will determine the size of the table required and whether that table is available for that given date and time. If it's not, it runs another flow which sees what available times are for their table size in order to give back to VAPI, which is going to then provide them with the information over voice. If they're happy with that, we can go ahead and go around to booking. If they're not, we can go down a different route and say, right, is there another date we'd like to book you in for? And then that means we can loop through the same automation again for the different date, providing alternative times if needed, or just going straight to it's available. Now, when they're ready, the next part for VAPI is to go and make sure it's got their name the booking's made under, make sure it gathers any allergies or dietary requirements, and then notes if it's a special occasion or not. This will then be sent from VAPI, our AI agent, into another automation on N8N, which is going to be adding the booking to our CRM and updating the availability. Once it's received a confirmation that this has gone through successfully, VAPI will then be able to tell your client that yes, this has all worked and gone through. So you may have noticed that we're using two different tools. Well, why can't we just have our AI agent do everything? Now, there's a reason for this, and this is what I'm going to break down the difference between just ChatGPT and then an AI agent. So a lot of time when I ask business owners whether they use AI or not, they usually respond back that, yeah, we're using ChatGPT, which is great, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there's a lot more to that. So there's two different things here now. We have ChatGPT, and then we have AI agents. When we're dealing with ChatGPT, these are where you're messaging back and forth and just holding a conversation, which is great if you want to get out information. But then when it comes to doing tasks, it can't help you any more than that just by answering your question. So when we actually want to get to a booking, this is when we use something called an AI agent, which is a tool like VAPI is used for. So this acts as the central brain, the AI here, similar to ChatGPT, but instead of it performing tasks, it is the powerhouse that decides what tools to run. And these are tools running from a platform called N8N, representing that. And what's great is that we can connect multiple tools to our AI agent, multiple different workflows. And so why are we using workflows rather than just relying on our AI agent? With these workflows, it means we can have a standardized process of booking things in, and it means we're not giving free roam to our AI agent. We've got a set way of how we do things. Now, this is great because one of the biggest problems with AI is a thing called hallucinations. As I mentioned earlier in the video, it's when AI starts to make things up, which is really important when we're trying to book people in, that we're not having it go crazy and thinking, oh yeah, let me just put 2 bookings for you or 1. That's great because these systems are more reliable, but they're also safer and secure. So we're not having access things that we don't want it to. It's only getting information from this specific workflow. So in this case, our AI is more of a decision maker than actually running any of these tasks. So these are effectively like a person pressing buttons on a computer to set off different automation flows. Now, what's great is that these automations are code-based, which means crucially, they don't make a mistake. So this has now reduced the point of hallucinations where there is no margin of error left, and it can complete tasks reliably, which makes it ready to be used with important day-to-day tasks and hence production ready because of that. So now you should have a better idea about what it does. Now let me go into a little bit more detail about how it's actually working. So a lot of people are wondering, well, how do we get the actual agent to talk? This is all done within the software VAPI. Now, if you're already familiar with ChatGPT, that's one of the things that VAPI is utilizing in order to make our agent speak. And as you can see, this is what brings the call cost down to something so low as 11 cents a minute, and also has such a small latency that means the conversation flow is very natural. Now, the main part about VAPI is our model. This is what actually gives the words to our agent, and we find that 4.0 mini cluster is particularly good for being very low latency. It's not going to be having to do anything complex, such as coding for you. All it needs to do is just have a conversation, and therefore a simple model with low latency like 4.0 mini does is currently great. I know a lot of people have questions with the advent of ChatGPT 5 coming out. One reason being to stick with 4 at the moment is that we've tried and tested it, but also ChatGPT 5 will choose any model itself, and therefore it's not always giving us that fine control and reliability we want when we're having an agent talk. I'm sure that will change in the future. As of right now, 4.0 mini is a good one to stick with. So what we can do here is first have a message the agent first says to the client saying, thank you for calling. are you booking to make a reservation with us today? Now, we can change this to whatever we want it to be, simply saying, how could I help? I just wanted it to go down and push a reservation to give me a clear indication of what we're trying to do and achieve here. The system prompt is the main part of this, though, and I'll go a little bit more detail into this. How large language model works is it takes greater priority in the first and last messages in your prompt. This is the kind of the message we're giving to the agent to tell you how we want you to behave when you say and speak back to us in your choice of words. So it's very important we give the agent its role so it understands, and context. So it's very important we give it the role and the context so it understands who it's working for and how it behaves. This is great because we need to give the agent guardrails. It needs to know how it's going to help the user who's having a conversation with it. And if it's given something outside of its context and role, it's not going to help you there, which is allowing us to greatly get more reliability and stop people having random conversations with our agents, something we don't really want. And as I mentioned as well, the bottom part of the prompt is also incredibly important. So I usually reserve this, and what I find works best, for things we don't want it to do. And that just means we can have things such as avoid mentioning the word transfer and never announce the tools we're using, certain things that just a normal human wouldn't say, and therefore we could just remove those robotic responses out of the conversation flow and reliably know we're not going to have that coming up. Additionally to this, we might include a few more specifics, but the next part is mostly down to the agent's roles. And this is giving it information about how it's going to handle each of the activities we give it. So we can have initial inquiry. And then the main two things is we're checking the availability and we're also making a booking. And then we're given instructions for the agent and how it's going to perform these two tasks. And as you can see, there's not actually that much information here. And that's because this isn't actually checking the booking and it isn't actually making the booking itself. This is where we run a tool that does it for it. We've given it a name, a vet check availability and book table. And those are the tools that the agent will have to know when is the appropriate time to run. And I'll just show you where these come into VAPI. It's in a new tab under tools. Here you can see the two here. So for the agent to actually understand when to use a certain tool, we've given it a bit of a description here. And we can also feed it different parameters. And so the agent will know these are the information it needs to pass through. And that means this tool can connect with our automation process in NA10, passing that information through to our automation so it can perform the certain tasks that we need it to do. So in this case, if we're booking a table, we need the date, we need the name, we need the time, we need any additional notes, party size, table size, dietary needs, quite a lot of information. And we can't just expect an automation to be run without any of that context. So this being sent through, as you can see here in this last example we gave, it went straight through, we realized it was a booking, and then it used that information to update our spreadsheets and update the number of bookings in our CRM, and also finishes back a response so the agent is informed again whether we actually have had a successful task or not. If not, it will try and repeat it again and flag up any issues with that. And it's the same for check availability. We just need 3 pieces of information for that. Nice and simple. Now back to our assistant. So the assistant knows how it needs to speak and the words it's going to use, but we don't know necessarily how it's going to sound. This is the next part, one of the most important things in the voice configuration. We're using the provider 11 Labs, and you might have heard them before, but they are what gets you the very scary human-like voices that you start hearing across the internet. And a lot of people do these for voiceovers. But what's great is that we can actually run those models using VAPI and actually give it the voice of the agent. And there are loads of voices to choose from. I've just picked Sarah. And this one, there's certain voices that work particularly well with certain models. And that's one thing we have access to a lot of with VAPI and 11 Labs. I found 11 Labs Flash 2.5. It's one of the lower latency ones to give you the quickest responses when people are talking. This generally works the best with particular voices. It's not going to work the best of them all, but you can go for more complex models, which will have a lot more depth and reliability with the voices, which means you can use any voice in 11 Labs library. But with that, you get added latency, and that's something that takes away from the realness of a conversation if you have large breaks in between responses. So that's the main thing you need to know when you're setting up your agent. And as a recap, the system prompt here is very short. What we typically have is a lot more information. We can provide plenty more about the company and examples about how we want it to act. That way we just get this running a lot more reliably, and that way we can run it live and not have any worries that it's going to behave unexpectedly. So now I'll just go for a little bit more information about the actual NA10 workflow itself. Now you'll see here, I've actually only using one, even though we've got 2 tool calls. And the way I can do this is by using a switch. Now every time you have a webhook, that's something that triggers this automation. We do have information provided by VAPI of what tool it's using. And that way we can just have this all within one nice workflow. And depending on the tool, it will depend on which little flow that it decides to run. So if we're actually checking availability, the first thing we need to do is actually determine the size of the table required. Because in this case, we've got tables of 4, we've got tables of 2. If a client says, I need a table with 3 people in, obviously that's not going to be able to help with any of these situations. And therefore, it needs to determine that tables of 2 is not going to be big enough. And therefore, we can then search in our CRM for tables of 4 to find out which tables are available for their time and date. I've got a nice little code module here that will then be able to sift out whether for their actual given table size, there's actually availability or not. And if there is an available table, we can immediately give a response. If not, before I want it to give a response, it's not useful just say, sorry, that table's not available. A much more natural way is to go, I'm sorry, we can't do XYZ time, but we do have some other times available. And that's where this automation and part of the workflow happens. So it will then go and find out all the time slots that are available that day. Aggregate just makes it into a nice little package to send through to our code module. Now, the first part of the code module is going to return the available times depending on the table size. And that case, if there are no times available, then we have to have a separate part of code which determines the correct response. So I've got a nice bit of code here, all written in JavaScript, working what to do if the table size is 4, if table size is 2, and then if they're none available, we'll then have a separate piece of code that runs through, and that gives us our custom messages so we know how VAPI is going to respond based on certain situations. So we'll respond with, sorry, we're fully booked that day, if there are actually no available slots, to stop people going, well, what about this time? What about this time? Instead, it's up front, allows them to understand they could book for another day. Or if there is no availability at that time, we now can give the response of what other times there are availability for so that the agent can actually resort to getting the booking sorted out rather than losing another client. So that's how the availability checking workflow works. It's a little bit more simple for our booking because we now have all the information. We just need to put it into our CRM. So usually we wouldn't be using Google Sheets for this. We'd actually be integrating this directly into their CRM. But I think this is just an easier way to actually process what's going on and just demonstrate it to you without going too complex and revealing client data. We need to first find the booking that they want to book for. And you can see actually on the right here, that's the output. We know all the information from our CRM for that specific time and date. Now, we've got that information. We actually need to record first information about the booking. And this provides all the information back into our CRM so that if anyone needs to go and look over and check what bookings are coming up today, it's fully documented in our CRM. We then need to actually update the number of tables that are booked. So we have a nice little if statement here. So depending on whether the party size is 2 or not will depend on whether we add an additional table to our tables of 4 for that booking or an additional number to our tables of 2. Once it's done that, able to respond to VAPI and just show you how it works. Just you're booked in, we can confirm it. And it actually will come up with a different response if this is not successful. NA10 will respond with an error and it won't go through. All the checks have been done with availability so that by the time we get around to booking, there shouldn't be any errors going through. But usually with clients, we like to add a few more extra layers of security than what you see. But without going into too much more detail, this is a nice, easier and simpler way of understanding what's going on. So if by the end of this video, you're there wanting to get more out of your agents and would like to get someone like myself to come and help integrate it into your business, then use the link in the description, book a call, and I'll see what I can do to help. And if you want to see more examples of how AI can be used, YouTube recommends this video right here.